Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again with another episode of the Nolecast. Bud, we've had instant reaction podcast in the third quarter, and we've had to put one off till Sunday, and ultimately rolled over after that this weekend. After Bud's playing with the flu, and I've got the self-inflicted flu after going out to a drinking lunch and dinner with a friend of mine last night. But hey, like I said, we've recorded when it's been a blowout, and we've had to push an episode in the year 2022 like this one so that we could get a better perspective as to if Florida State actually had a chance to play in one of the more meaningful bowl games out there, which is quite a freaking turnaround. So this episode will be a little bit everywhere. We'll look at the Louisiana game briefly. We'll look at the Florida game briefly. And we'll talk about what's necessary and if there's a path for Florida State to make their way into the Orange Bowl. So, my man, I know you're feeling it. I appreciate the effort. We'll try to lean on me a little bit more than you on this one, but here's a go at a Nolecast, and we're off.
No doubt about it. Appreciate all of our sponsors, of course, Louisiana Hot Sauce, Legendary Home Loans, Congruity, Charlie Park, and of course, like you guys see on the hat, Tarpon Sellers. All you guys much appreciated. And am I muted still? I'm sorry. No,
you're not muted, sir.
Okay.
I was just saying I've got a prize. You've got a Tarpon Sellers hat. I've got a Prize Picks quarter zip. We're just corporate men this morning. So
my voice feels like I should be muted, but hopefully the Sudafed kicks in soon. I think I'm on day 3 of this flu, and my wife had it, and she said she only had the aches for like 2 days. So I'm hoping I have it for 2.5 and not a full 3 here. But yeah, I mean, this is what some of the guys on the team had. I wouldn't want to go out and put the pads on right now. So and this is actually kind of going around quite a bit. Like there's I know like Boston College, I think their entire offensive line had it this week, and they lost like 49-0 or something against the Irish. And anyway, Florida State 49, Louisiana 17. This officially hit garbage time in the first half because you beat these dudes 35-0. You scored a touchdown on 7 of your first 8 drives, which was pretty damn impressive, right? Just come out and like this team is having a lot of fun right now. They're playing together. They're celebrating each other. They are they're celebrating, but they're not really hot dogging necessarily, right? And they're playing together as a unit, which is really nice. And it is really nice to see these guys bounce back after the October they had, which was, an unfortunate October. I think you really got to praise Mike Norvell and the staff for the culture that they have instilled here, right? It's a culture of a team that plays hard. They really do fight and they don't quit. And not that they had a chance to quit in this game, but I'm saying like they didn't quit on the season, even when it was clear that they had no chance anymore to win the division after October. They've bounced back, and I didn't know this was going to happen. I already thought FSU would, win by 24 plus, like we talked about in the preview / prediction. But Ingram, this is your 4th straight game against a backup quarterback or a hurt quarterback or both. Apparently, the starter for Louisiana is done for the year, and none of the media there in Louisiana knew that, and they played Chandler Fields, who is flat out terrible. I mean, like, no offense, but maybe he'll be okay at the Sun Belt level. But there's a reason the kid got benched, and Woolridge was playing, and Woolridge was the kid for them that like beat Marshall on the road. So not that was a great offense. They kind of have one dude they throw the ball to in Jefferson, as we talked about in the preview. I mean, he had 8 targets, 6 catches on the day. A lot of that was kind of in garbage time, not really a real factor for you. So that was good to see you didn't get beat by their stud. Some stats for you here. Louisiana had a 40% success rate on offense in the first quarter, but no explosive plays in the first quarter. Actually, negative rating in the explosive plays, which I almost never see when I pull my data. And then second quarter, they had a 0% success rate, which is nice to see. And again, a negative EPA as far as success rate goes. Explosive rate. Your defense just came out and whipped these guys. And we talked about this a couple episodes ago. This defense is definitely better than it was because it's got its guys back. They seem to be playing together more as a unit. We don't know the answer to the question of how they will be or would be against an explosive passing offense or just a competent passing offense. The last 4 you've played have been just downright kind of horrendous throwing the ball, right? And that's kind of the one weakness we think of this defense is just allowing easy completions. But you may not face one the rest of this year, depending on who you get to play in the bowl game. So the way they're playing right now on defense, I think can work against Florida. And this will be a test, and we'll talk more about this in the preview, but the over-under here opened up at 58. Spread is 9. That's kind of an implied score of like 34-24. In my mind, you faced 4 competent offenses, right? LSU, Louisville, Clemson, and Wake. They scored 23, 31, 31, and 34. Can you hold Florida to 21? I don't know. Can you hold them under 27? Because I think you can score the ball on Florida. And there's a couple things I think you did in this game that set them up, by the way. Like I will say Florida State was very vanilla in terms of not introducing a whole lot of new plays, but they did run a lot of different formations, which I like because you're going to make UF prep for a lot of these different formations during their short week of prep because you're playing on a Friday here, right? You did your pistol stuff, you did some pistol double wing, you did some sort of like double offset tight end stuff. One play I thought they threw in, which is a neat wrinkle that I haven't really seen them do a lot this year. They've done it a couple times. So you ran a bunch of counter in this game. Okay, and the Sudafed's definitely kicking in now. I'm probably talking pretty quick. I feel it.
Glorious talk.
So
Bud told me he couldn't talk today. He's just ripping 5 minutes, no problem. This is that's normal Nolecast.
The one all right, the one counter you ran, you know how FSU runs that little like kind of like hop skip like quick pitch sweep thing? You ran a little counter off that where both the back and Jordan did the little hop step to like with the quick counter pitch. It's almost like a pseudo speed option look that you're going to run your little like quick pitch sweep off, but they actually ran counter off that. So, my question is that something that's going to make UF pause a little bit when you're trying to run your normal little quick pitch thing? They've done this before, but I just thought, okay, what is Mike doing here? Clearly, he's going to make Florida think about, wait, we can't overplay this, right? We can't overplay that. Jordan pulled the ball quite a bit in this game. I mean, how many runs did he have?
I had a friend who had Jordan under the rushing on Prize Picks, and they had literally almost ended the first offensive play of the game.
Yeah, I mean, 5 for 38, and were any of the? I think one of those was a scramble, so maybe 4 design runs. I'm trying to think here.
He has the one scramble where he flushes to the left and picks up about 6 yards or so. I think everything else that I can recall was a design run.
Okay, so either 3 or 4 definitely like design runs. 2 of them clearly were pulls because he scored touchdowns on both of them, and I wonder too if that isn't to help you open up the pass game against Florida, right? Because some of those looks, the defense doesn't necessarily know, is this an actual zone read type thing or is it more of an RPO, right? What is Jordan reading there? I think you're doing some stuff in this game, a lot of different formations, but not a lot of different plays. I mean, you ran counter a boatload, a lot of different formations, a couple little wrinkles on those things that maybe you make UF prep for. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, you can throw off this look. You can throw off that look. Florida, like, I don't know, like we're doing this preview of the game, but you got to think, like, how does this apply to UF? A little bit of situational tempo in this game. I don't think, I mean, we said this every single week. I'm not giving away state secrets. I think if you can tempo Florida, you should, because they are thin on the defensive line. It's week 12. You want to get into that UF depth. You want to, I think Florida State should want to run 80 or 90 plays in this game if you can. And I like you in a shootout more than in a slow run the football slogfest type game, personally. Just it gives Mike the chalk more times.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a good game anytime the opponent kicks a field goal at the end of the half to salvage a 35-3 score, make it look a little bit better. And it's a good game anytime you get to play all four of your quarterbacks, which that was interesting to see. Interesting to see you got Tate in, but for a second, and maybe gave Gino and AJ the most burn that they're going to see this year. But yeah, man, everybody kind of got a little bit from the running side of the ball. I think the bigger storyline there is the return to Trayshawn Ward. He looks healthy. I think benefited by continuing to be able to hold him back and not force him back earlier. You've got three exceptionally talented running backs for the college level, and I have to give Lawrence Toafili credit. Not a wild game by him by any means here, but just the emergence of that guy over the year, and you started to see it at the end of last year. I think is a obviously if we're making a list of offensive, the reason why the offense is the way it is, it starts with Jordan, and Toafili may not be sixth or seventh on that list, but he certainly added a dynamic to this offense that was needed. And dude's a much more productive player than I thought he was going to be. So hands up on that one, and credit to Toafili for the year that he's given, particularly these last 6 or 7 games.
The way that Mike pieces this offense together is really really well done, and it shows. Something that I don't want to talk about Jimbo every episode, even though we probably could, given the way their year's going, and given the way that we were called idiots the entire time in throughout 2017.
So that exodus at halftime had to be organized, right? That's not a coincidence that damn 92% of the stadium leaves.
It was like 25 degrees there with sleet, so
Okay.
I don't know, like
Yeah,
if
maybe you're right.
but
And they
I
do love their band there in a different level than almost any other program. So that those fans like stay and
like a
watch the band play,
like a cult like way.
like in a
Okay,
different a different level of buy-in type way. Definitely,
all
yes.
right. So here's my thought: there's no way this offense looks anywhere near this good with Jimbo with
Yeah.
these pieces. You know what I'm saying? Like it would look robotic and slow, and I don't think that you'd be putting players in the best position to make plays. Mike clearly, I think, like Mike tries, I think, to call plays for players and not just call plays,
You
right?
know what's interesting about Jimbo is I felt like his first years at Florida State, he did that. When he realized the defense was as horrible as it was and that he was going to have to score as
Yeah.
much, that was as flexible a coach as there was, and willing to adjust and willing to play in a manner that he knew he had to win games. I don't know what happened to 2009, 2010 Jimbo. But
Desperation. He
it's
wasn't
yeah,
proven,
yeah, true.
right? Like
Yeah, desperation
he didn't
and
have 100 million in the bank already.
first chance to prove yourself at a major job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Like, I mean, do you think? I, I don't think there's any way that Mike scores less than 30 points on UMass with A&M's players,
Yeah.
right?
No.
I mean, there's no way. And I mean, I, I don't know. I can't say that the run game wouldn't be as good, but the pass game I don't think would be quite as good here because of some of the creative stuff they do to set it up. It's not like you have a for sure NFL quarterback, right? Mike, like you're not asking Jordan to read it out on every single play. Mike schemes up stuff for them. There are a lot of plays where you're reading one or two, right? And you choose, and there's a boatload of run action. You don't do a whole lot of just straight drop back stuff right now because that's not what your personnel dictates. So you are playing to your strengths, and you could tell me, and if you're a naysayer, I get it. Like you could say, like Bud, I mean, a couple of these teams you've played seem to have kind of quit or just like they didn't bring their dudes. I'm like, yeah, that's fair, but you're still going out there and doing it. And you could say like, hey, anything you run would work. Okay, I get that, but it is 4 weeks in a row, and they're looking good. So if I have any kind of, I don't know, if I have any kind of like negatives about this game, and they're not many, right? Because I'm not really sure how much you tried to show. The pass game was a little bit like not clunky. What's the word I'm looking for here? It just kind of not super explosive, and it felt like you didn't have a lot of guys open at times, right? Does that make sense? I just but then again, I felt like Louisiana was playing to deny the explosive play, and I think your success rate shows that. So they kept a lot of dudes back. They were not blitzing you a ton, at least in the reps that I watched, and I got the zoomed out angle on this. Your success rate, I think, matches that, right? I mean, you had a 68% running success rate. You got light box a decent bit of the time. I think Louisiana was trying to not allow 70
Hmm.
in this game, and they were like, okay, like let's get in here, let's get out. We have a chance. Louisiana has a chance to make a bowl still, right?
Yeah, they do.
They're 5-6.
They are 5-6. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the game next week for them at Texas State is a winnable game. Texas State won 16-13, I think, if I recall, because I had some under there against Arkansas State. So, uh, yeah, I mean, I think both these teams coming into this game had sort of a mission to get to next week, and they did get to next week, which was fantastic. Whole offensive line, I think, is playing as a unit pretty well. I mean, how many tackles for loss did you allow? And I know it's freaking Louisiana, but I mean, dude, there just wasn't much penetration. You know, you didn't always block the second level super well. And again, if you want to nitpick this thing, I guess we can. You didn't block the second level amazingly well at times. I mean, but the first level blocking was good. And that to me is showing, independent of opponent, and your communication was good. You weren't allowing a lot of free runners at your backs or at Jordan for the most part. Uh, that was encouraging, right? And that's showing me that at this point in the season, Alex Atkins has these guys well coached. They're still limited physically somewhat, but this is the best offensive line play you've had since probably 2015 or 16.
Yeah, yeah. 15 was what I had in mind, but absolutely, basically saying the same thing. Um, Final comment from me on this game in the we're all getting old department, and great to see Ethan Fisher was actually a unofficial visitor for this game. Bud Ethan has turned
Wow.
into a very good kicker, and credit to him for that. And yes, we are all getting very old, so good for Ethan to make his way out there and turn himself into quite the little college kicker or potential college kicker.
That's awesome, man. Wow. Good for Ethan. That is fantastic. Um, all right. So you did get to see the backups in this game a lot. It was kind of cool to see Geno English get in there, right? Also, like Duffy, clearly has some arm talent. Clearly has a long way to go before he is a viable starter at this level. You know, Rodemaker got in there through one pass, 45-yarder, kind of nice. But yeah, man, that was nice to see. I would say I like the continued development of Douglas, right? At tight end. I mean, he's a dude who still has a chance to get into even better shape
Hmm.
overall. But and I don't think he's somebody who is at this point, like, if I tell you he's your starting tight end next year, I'm probably not thrilled with that, but I'm more pleased with that than I would have been this time in the preseason. But if he's your starting tight end in 2024 as like a very advanced, I mean, he'd be what, 20, 21, 22 years old? I don't know what his birth date is. That's the kind of guy I feel like body type wise might develop late.
Hmm. He's his trajectory and as far as development has been impressive. Very raw kid, as we always knew. Has started to flash hands a little bit better as a nice catch in this game. Um, Listed at what 268 pounds or whatever. So yeah, if he's your starter next year, I'm not doing backflips, but I feel real comfortable with it, particularly based off how he's developed and some of the
Can he
signs
block
that
well
we've
enough
seen
to where
this
you
year.
don't need to take a blocking tight end in the portal?
I
You know
think,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Can they get him to that point to where he is doing he's blocking that well?
physically, you would certainly expect him to continue to improve as a blocker. I mean, he's got a big frame. He's not one of these 232-pound tight ends or something like that. I mean, he's got the ability to match up with a defender a lot better than some of these hybrid H backs that you see at the position nowadays. But yeah, man, I just good for Biscuit. Been a good season for him, and he's kind of, as the term that we've used a lot. He's flashed and proven good on some of the potential that some of the coaching staff thought that he had out there. So
No doubt about it. And also, like he might have been further along had he not gotten hurt right when he got there, right? So, um, let me see. Do we need to talk defensively at all? Like who you liked? Because there's a lot of guys to like.
yeah, I mean, this is a you
Fabian kind of whipped their ass.
just keep doing it. Fabian is, obviously it's not high level commentary to say that Fabian makes this defense entirely better. Blah blah blah. It'd be incredible to see what you would have been like had you had Fabian all year. Things that we've said and others have acknowledged as well. But it is just a reminder. Fabian doesn't defeat blocks. A lot of times Fabian humiliates the person that's trying to block him and throws him aside. DJ Lundy had a nice little day statistically. Verse continues to flash. Enjoy Verse while you got him, in my opinion. But yeah, defense is continued to come along, and would have been nice to have not giving up 14 points in the fourth quarter. But again, when you're scoring in the high 40s and other teams are scoring last minute garbage touchdowns, that's something you can live with, and kind of a luxury that Florida State fans have gotten accustomed to over the past couple of weeks.
I mean, you had what, 5 sacks before garbage time? I think it was. I'm trying to remember here. No, because technically garbage time, but you had 4 sacks through the third quarter, right? So before you put your third stringers in there, I mean, you dominated these guys pretty hard. They got nothing in the pass game, and 7 PBUs for you, no picks, but you definitely harassed their receivers a pretty good bit. I think I'll just go back to the most encouraging thing for me overall was that there are games in which you don't look smooth and you still win because you hit explosive plays because you just have better athletes. And Louisiana was definitely like, hey, we're not going to give you the explosive plays. Drive it to beat us. The worst case scenario here is that we run the game clock and this thing doesn't end up 70-14. It's 49-14. And you said, okay, we will do that at a 62% success rate clip. That's showing me a team that is in rhythm overall, and a team that is just, because we've seen games like this where it's like, okay, you didn't look that great. I would say Georgia Tech actually kind of like that, right? Where, okay, you hit some explosives, didn't really look super smooth overall. The run game here looked pretty smooth despite just running your base stuff. Louisiana, obviously not a great opponent. I kind of wonder how much they prep for this, to be honest, given that they do have a chance to go to a bowl next week. But yeah, I was encouraged there, man. Now 2 minutes on Florida, maybe. Richardson graded out really well. Other guys on that team did not. They, like, I don't know that they have the best receivers right now, which is really, I think, encouraging for you. And if you look at this, where did I put this? I pulled their advanced stats earlier from the game.
You're a statistical man, bud. Let me throw one at you. You know how, like in the NFL, they're like, oh, if you score a defensive touchdown, you win 76% of the time or something like that, right?
Yeah.
What's the percentage of games you win if your long snapper scores a touchdown?
Probably 1,000,000%.
I was sitting there with a friend of mine. I'm like, who's not a big football fan. I'm like, let me tell you, like the other 21 guys on the field are like elite level athletes, like gazelles. Long snappers most times just like your average Joe, who that's his way he finds out on football. And then Vandy's long snapper scored, and I was like, yeah, okay, there you go, good for you, Vandy.
Long snapping is more of a skill than talent. Like, it's something you can actually like learn to be good at. And like you can't learn to run 4.4. You can, within reason, learn to be a decent long snapper if you start early enough. It's kind of like if you're a dad out there and you want to get your son a scholarship and you think he's probably not going to be like a mega beast physically, teach him long snap. It's not the worst thing in the world. You can do that.
Guy I played with in middle school was the long snapper for the Bucks for like 11 years. Economos, if that name rings a bell to anybody. Yeah, he played in the league. That dude was not an NFL player otherwise. I can assure you that. So There's your 3-minute long snapping update on
Wow.
today's Nolecast. And if you have an interest in sponsoring this segment, please contact me.
I'll always be selling. All right. So Florida, interestingly here, and I've not rewatched the game. I had it on and off. This was interesting. Vanderbilt came out and basically said, throw it on us if you can. And Florida said, we will. And Florida threw it pretty well. 400 plus yards, 48% success rate, but a 25% success rate for the Gators running the football is pretty damn bad. Like that's not good. And also, I think if you're the Gators, that makes Vanderbilt made those guys play left-handed. Florida's comfort zone is clearly trying to run the football with their backs and with Richardson. And if you look at that game, man, Florida outgained those dudes a lot. And it was basically, if you play it again, I think we're all picking Florida just because of the fact that they outgained them by like 170 yards. And still, I just think there's situational stuff here that Vandy did well. Yeah, so Florida outgained them 445 to 283 on a yards per play basis, 7 to 4.6. This was one of the more fluky losses, not of the season, but of the day. I think Connolly had them in like the 30s as far as expected win percentage for Vandy. But I do think it's notable, right? Like you got ahead game script wise. Richardson 4 for 25. Vandy didn't have a single sack. They only had 2 tackles for loss. Their running back Johnson only had 25 on 11 carries. They really just couldn't run the ball. Now they threw the ball 25 for 42 for 400, which is pretty impressive, obviously. But it didn't turn into points necessarily. Obviously, you said Vandy had the long snapper recovered the kick, which is quality. Vandy also had a 28-yard one-play touchdown drive, I think, after another turnover by the Gators. This is interesting. I want to go back and watch this to see exactly what Vandy was doing to take away Florida's run game, because I feel like clearly you have better athletes in Vandy. It's not a feel like. I know that. Because for a lot of the year, I've been thinking, okay, maybe you force Anthony Richardson to be consistent throwing the football. But like their passing success rate was 48%. That's pretty good against a conference opponent, even if it is Vandy, I guess. They took away the run. And I'm kind of intrigued what FSU will decide to do against these dudes. Will they load the box? How did Vandy take away the run? Looking here at the participation chart for UF, it appears that maybe some of their they hold some of their guys, because some of these names in the offensive line I don't really recognize as Florida's normal starters. So I'm kind of curious to see who they did or did not play. Maybe they. Ooh, man! If they held dudes out and lost the game, that's
the old
I
look
don't want to
ahead.
accuse them of yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't want to accuse them of holding it out like on purpose, but or like maybe they actually are hurt, but yeah. That's a game I think you feel pretty good about overall, because I think you'll score on the Gators, right? Vandy with a 57% passing success rate in this ball game. Didn't have to throw it very much, which obviously, I mean, when you have the lead, they only threw 16 passes. But Mike Wright is not a very good passer for the Commodores, and that's still a pretty good success rate for them. Florida caused very little havoc against Vandy. Vandy had several offensive linemen out. I think that's the real key here, by the way. If you're not causing havoc against Vandy, will you cause havoc against the Noles?
Right.
Probably shouldn't, but you still got to go out there and take care of business. Vandy run game wise, this is something interesting too, man. So 46 for 175, but the longest run was 26. So it appears like Vandy actually could run it when they need to. That was 32% rushing success rate. That's not the worst thing in the world I've ever seen. I don't know. There's definitely some stuff to like there.
Hard not to I mean, look, we're not the players, whatever, but hard not to get, maybe overly confident after watching that. And I'll go back and watch the Vandy game again, but that's not quite the way that some of these other games have fallen. Certainly not the way that Miami fell into like the, oh, if you lose this game, it's going to be really embarrassing category based off how they've played in the weeks following or preceding your game. But Florida certainly took the shine off themselves a little bit. And hey, look, anytime you get a chance to, this is year one. Everybody gets a pass. I'm not saying that people are going to start climbing on their coach, but anytime you get a chance to thump somebody, and if you can parlay a Vandy loss into a Florida State loss and put that on the Florida fan base and its coach, that's what you do. Again, make the most of it. Nobody's losing support in year one, or at least significant support. But go ahead and start to plant the seed of doubt. And in this season, on a bit of a sour note for Florida, whereas 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think they were legitimately thinking that they were going to relatively overperform as far as what their in-season expectations were. So,
Also, I will point this out, right? And it wasn't garbage time, so I get that. Through the third quarter, Vandy outgained these guys 226 to 215.
okay,
So this was a vastly different game once the Commodores got up because they were up 28-12 through the third quarter.
yeah,
Florida really, I mean, I'm not saying they didn't move the ball early, but in the fourth quarter, they had drives of 91, 75, and 57. 57 was to end the half, or to end the game. They
in the
did
game,
not
yeah.
score on that.
That's the Hail Mary that flies 12 yards past the end zone, which is always a good look when you're throwing it from like the 37 or
Yeah.
whatever that was. But
The one they turned over on downs, by the way, Richardson seems to make the right read, and credit to Vandy for making the right read be the deep shot, and he just misses them by it's a non-competitive pass.
mhm,
So um, I'm sure Adam Fuller is watching that and saying, okay, got some options here.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of which, might have more bowl options.
Crazy, man. Crazy that the way Saturday played out for you on that end, and some of the losses that were taken. Obviously, the Tennessee is significant as to how it opens up some of this, and whether or not Clemson can get in the college football playoff, and how that impacts Florida State's ultimate destination. So, yeah, we'll just have to see what it looks like tomorrow night with where the committee puts these things. But Bud, I don't know. What would you say? 25 to 30% chance Florida State could land in the Orange Bowl this year?
Well, so I mean, you need to. They cannot go to the Orange Bowl without Clemson going to the college football playoff, right?
Right.
So basically, you need to figure out what Clemson's college football playoff chances are, and then you need to win out, and you need. I think you may need a couple more things to happen, right? Um, do you need NC State to beat UNC? Like if UNC loses to Clemson, or is UNC, or excuse me, if UNC beats NC State but loses to Clemson, are they going to the Orange Bowl as the ACC runner-up?
I would.
Because they would have three. They'd have three losses,
They have
and they
three
would have made the
losses,
championship game.
2 in conference. Yeah, good question. I don't know. I think that becomes a conference. I think it becomes a bowl pick at that point. But I'm not. I don't say that with confidence, or that I know that to be the case.
UNC had the Orange Bowl three in 2020 because remember UNC
Right.
played A&M in the
Yeah.
COVID year.
Yeah.
It's been what?
The old high water mark, as it will be referred to, for
Yes.
the experiment out in College Station.
I mean, I figure Clemson probably has about, I don't know, 30% odds to make the playoff right now. And then you probably need maybe one or two more things to happen, I would say. So let's give Florida State like a non-zero chance at the Orange Bowl, which I don't think a couple weeks ago we would have said. I cannot believe Zach Gibson beat UNC, by the way.
Insane. I was listening to that game on the radio like it was the 1940s or something like that, and it was. I would say it was hard to quantify, other than the fact that you just know UNC seemingly has one of these in them each year, and I literally listened to it play out on the radio on Saturday night. Kind of a strange game. It kicked off at 6:05 or whatever it did, and UNC started out okay, but far and away their quarterback, who we're both exceptionally high on, his worst game of the year by light years. And yep, UNC just turned in their clunker against one of the worst college football teams I've seen without the if you haven't watched Georgia Tech again, like the promising freshman who came in and played okay at quarterback has since gotten hurt and is out for the year, and they've got the guy back in the game who, tends to prefer to just go into the fetal position and take sacks as opposed to operate an offense. So I, I, I don't know. I mean, if you're UNC, it's nice that Mac Brown's risen the floor there and is recruited okay. But it sure looks like you've got one or two games a year that are just kind of crap sandwiches, and
Yeah.
that was one this weekend.
I mean, giving up 20 plus to Georgia Tech with Zach Gibson. Remember, guys, if you don't recall, if you don't follow ACC quite like we do, Zach Gibson is the quarterback that was just horrendous for Georgia Tech against FSU, and then they put in the freshman backup who's actually pretty good. Freshman backup's now hurt, so they had to play Gibson. And giving up 20 plus to Gibson is a sign of poor defensive coaching, in my opinion. Like that is just as bad as giving up 63 to South Carolina, in my mind. I mean, like that offense is incompetent and inept with Gibson in there, and that's terrible.
Yep.
You know that Vandy did not have a play of 30 yards.
Did not know that. No.
Kind of interesting.
While we're just bouncing around, Bud, did you know that I saw the future on Friday night?
No.
You do, because I texted you, but
the offensive tackle.
I went and saw a kid. I went and saw a friend of mine who was coaching in a high school championship game, and he's got a sophomore by the name of David Sanders. I don't think he projects as an offensive tackle. I think he projects as maybe a defensive end or maybe another offensive position. You're not going to use a kid who's considered potentially the number one prospect in his class as a tight end, but I don't think he has the frame for tackle. I do think he has the frame to do damn near anything else that is out there. And if you're a recruit, Nick, like us, you can write that name down, David Sanders out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and you'll only see big things to come. I can all but promise you that.
I like to see. I don't pay a lot of attention to the 25 ratings, to be honest, but I like to see that we have him as like one of the top players in the entire country already.
I think you've got him at number one in the country.
So
from what this from what this layman saw on Friday, I think your ratings are pretty accurate.
He looks like a difference maker as a 25 already. That's good to see. Let me see our prize picks card. We did run down. I know we tweeted it out. Our FSU selection, Jordan under 18 and a half completions, clearly hit. Jordan only threw 14 passes. It is difficult in most times to complete 18 and a half or more passes if you only throw the ball 14 times. Let me see. Marquise Irving, that I believe that hit on the over. He caught a couple passes and scored a touchdown for Oregon. Jackson Dart throwing a pick. Unsure on that one. Hendon Hooker in a shootout. Did Hooker get the this lost? But I'll get to why it lost. But we hit the Jordan part, which I was pretty happy with. Frank Harris, UTSA just was able to run the ball enough so he didn't have to throw. We knew that Rice's three corners were out, so I'd probably play that one again in every possible combination that I could. Just if you know the opponent is down top three corners, that's probably something you should go after. And man, so we'll fire another one on Friday. I always appreciate Prize Picks supporting the show. And
can't wait for this weekend. I had a hard time with my Prize Picks card this weekend because you just didn't know who was going to play how long. And really, the only games I felt comfortable with were Oregon, Utah, and USC, UCLA, which was a really fun game to watch if you happen to watch it. But look forward to this weekend with a little bit more certainty. And thank you, as always, to our friends at Prize Picks.
It is fun to play a little daily fantasy. Speaking of daily fantasy, I do have to point out, because I know he's a listener of the show, Costello, Ingram, how pissed would you be if you lost your matchup 117.4 to 117.1?
Is this your fantasy?
Yeah.
Well, that's tough.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Well, I went to bed well before the Chargers game ended last night. So, all right, I got to run downstairs, and we have to upload this thing, and I've got to probably pound some more cold medicine because I'm live in about 4 hours. So I'll see you, man.
There you go. Enjoyed it. Thanks for making it possible this morning, bud. Talk to y'all soon. We'll be back for the Florida game, certainly. Hope you have a great week. Great Thanksgiving. Go Knowles. Like I said, we'll preview the Florida game, the Friday game, in its entirety later on. Till then, thanks for supporting the Nolecast.